Hey everybody, hope everyone is doing well out there. My recent video, I was asked a few questions about my layout and some how-to things, I guess. One of the viewers, T. Bob, this is for you, okay? He asked questions about uh, track that I'm using, pros and cons, things like that. So what I decided to do was to make a video explaining some things about my layout. I know there's been a lot of you guys, a lot of you folk who recently subscribed to me don't know the backstory of everything. So this room is an 8 by 18 room that I built in my garage. It's 18 feet long by 8 feet wide. Um, it's not totally square. There is a indentation like this over my shoulder that I had to work around. The layout is built on or in sections of 8 foot long by 2 feet deep in most sections of the layout. You will see when I turn this around, my intermodal yard is actually an interior door. Hey, I'm a budget model railroader. The door was available. I decided to use it. But T-Bob's question was more about my track. The entire layout is Cato or Cato if you prefer. The entire layout is, except for two spots, and I'll show you that in a minute. Pros. I really like the performance. I like that when I first started using this, probably, well, I was, 30 years ago? Close to 30 years ago. I was able to shove a train all the way around my layout. No derailment. And that sold me on it. So I like the way the rail cars as well as the locomotives perform on this track. Con, I'm going to show you. One of the things that I don't like about it, I'll show you here just a second. So, a couple things. So I have these up here just for illustrative purposes. This is Atlas, that's Cato track. So, if you look at prototype railroads, the real thing, if this were a siding and this is a main line, that would work because the sidings and the yards are usually not as high as the main line. So for realistic purposes, I wish that I could get this sort of effect in my yard and in sidings. So you would definitely have to use Atlas or some other track if this is what you're going for in your layout, other than, Cato for the main line. The other thing that I don't like about it is the space between the track and the yard. Now you see the width that is, that's about an inch, maybe a little wider. Whereas the other track, I have this set up. You see this? This is more realistic looking because there's not a ton of space between rail cars in the yard. There's a bunch of it up there. So for realistic purposes, I would rather use Atlas or Pico or something else for my yard. But again, performance, I like the way the Cato performs. So, you kind of go with what works, at least as far as what I'm concerned. So that's why I use the track that I'm using. Trying to think, what was the other question? So back in the day, when I first got into N scale, if you remember, if you've been in the hobby that long, the rail cars had the wheels on what they called pizza cutter wheels. The flanges were so big. Here we go, right here. Here's an example. Let me get this thing. Look at those flanges. See how big they were? So you had to use the tallest track that you could for these things to operate properly. You try to put this on, like, say, code 55 track, they're not going to roll right. This is a standard height in scale track. So it would work fine on these, with these pizza cutter wheels, the big old flange. But other track, it won't. If you put that on Code 55, it's going to bounce all the way down the track. So, you know, if you want realism, yeah, the Code 55 is cool as heck. I think it looks so much more realistic. But if you are wondering about, you know, operations and how well your rail cars operate, then you want to use a taller track or lower profile wheels. So one of the two you're going to have to use. Other thing I wanted to share, I've been asked this question before. So if you look at my track, I weathered it. I did this around in a lot of spots. And the paint that I use an acrylic paint. And get that at Hobby Lobby, or what's that other one? Michael's. This is not particularly the color that I use, but you know, you can, this stuff here, very reasonable price. You can experiment with your colors, figure out something that you like, and go with that. And it can be a little time consuming because I took a fine brush and brushed each one. Then I came back with a paper towel or whatever and just wiped it off a little bit. And it's easier to do this way. This is water soluble paint. And a lot of times I just took my finger and wiped it off the top of the rails. And you're ready to run trains once it dried. But it goes all the way around. Most of my track has been painted like that. This one section of the track is, or the layout, I'm sorry, where there's not a lot of scenery. So when I mention the two spots that does not have Cato track, is this turnout right here. I needed a curved turnout. This is a Pico curved turnout, right hand turn. And this one over here is also, this one is an Atlas. This right here. Get in there a little closer. That's an Atlas. The reason that one was used, I was putting down the track. I did not have a left hand turnout. I had a good Atlas, so I stuck it in there. It was cheaper and it worked. That's the reason that's in there. Everywhere else, again, the entire layout is Cato track. Okay. Another thing I wanted to share, my backdrop. This, when I purchased this a couple years ago, I went to Great American Train Show. There was a guy there selling a bunch of stuff. I saw the backdrop. And I thought, man, it's not HO. And he goes, oh, it'll work. And I went ahead and bought it anyway. It was 3 sheets for $35. I said, okay. Even though I knew it was the wrong scale, I went ahead and purchased it. So I took it to the FedEx store, and I took one of my buildings with me just as a reference, and I asked the guy, could he scale the backdrop down? So they took pictures, and they did whatever they did and shrunk it. And it came with the backing on it. I could have done it just a flat piece, but I asked him to put the backing on it. It cost me $100, but I think it turned out really well. So that's how that happened with the backdrops. On this side, I had a few pieces left, kind of the same buildings, but I used them over there. Now over here with the silhouette looking piece there, this type of construction material, that's what that is. I painted around the edges to cover the white up. Gives it depth. This area over here, I showed a little indentation. Let me pull this back. Okay. So I think it's the dining room's on the other side of that wall. Otherwise, it would have been all the way up to the corner, just like the other side. This area right here, this is all scenery. when folks come visit my layout, they ask the question, so where's that going? It's not going anywhere. It's a small space. I needed something to do. I did have a coal mine on my other layout, but that was not enough room for a coal mine. So came up with the idea to put that in there. I've been asked a couple different times about the water. When I first put the water down, it was the Woodland Scenic, those little water beads. Now, this being in my garage, I do have a small heat and air unit, but the temperature is not consistent. So I noticed after it was down for a while, it started cracking, and it looked terrible. So I tried a couple other different things that I tried. They just didn't look right. I tried painting over it. I tried, I don't know, other things. If you look at it close, you can see some of the paint. I was trying to come up with a decent color. And then I tried polyurethane, clear, two different colors actually, a light blue polyurethane, which I ended up painting over, and then the clear polyurethane, and that's how I got this effect. And this probably 4 or 5 layers of polyurethane on it. Once it dried, I hit it again, and I'm pretty happy with what I ended up with. The exact method, I couldn't tell you, is trial and error. It was just several different things that I tried, and that's what I ended up with. So I can't give you a specific way I did it. It just came out like this, so I'm sorry I can't give you any more details than that. The mountain is white styrofoam. Why did you use white styrofoam? Because it was available. I know most of y'all use the pink or the blue stuff, but when we first moved in this house, the wife was ordering a bunch of stuff from Wayfair and places like that. Styrofoam was available. I used it. Some of my early videos, you might see how I did this, but right above the portal there is a line around there where I can lift the top out. I've never had to do it, but I can remove that if necessary. So far, I've not had to do it. My lift out, because of my age, my height, and my knees, I am not doing a duck under. I built this to get in and out. It worked pretty well. One of the main questions I get is this. When you put your hinges down, get you a 1/4-inch piece of plywood and lift up your hinges. And once you do, that's the most important part. You know, when you cut your track, and it will clear. I don't know if you have to do that with HO, but it works within scale. These pieces here are adjustable Cato track because of expansion and contraction in the room. Sometimes I have to pull them up tighter or push them back depending on the weather or you know, humidity in the room. Sometimes it happens. Lastly, my street. This part of the street is plaster, hydrocal plaster. Yeah, it's stuff like you would use for a broken arm or something. That's what this is. This is styrene. And this is also the Cato track for the, oh my gosh, I'm going blank. But it's the same track that I'm using over here for my intermodal yard. For some reason, I can't think of the name of it. I should have got it out so I could remember. But I cut it in half to make it a single lane over here, and that's what's down my street. Again, the entire layout's Cato track. And I said that was it, but one other thing I wanted to show you guys. So a couple videos back, 3 or 4, whatever it was, I showed you where I met a subscriber who has his own business of making 3D printed items for your layouts, from O scale down to N, I believe. And it's called Whistle Stop Models. This guy. So I showed his models that I got from him, and at the time that I had them initially, they were not painted. But this dump truck and that one, those are his products. This ramp, you see them stand out in the middle of a yard or somewhere to load a truck. And then lastly, check out the scaffolding. So the boards that came with it, I painted them. I did touch this up with some aluminum paint, but those are all his products. So check his website out. He does a real good job, several different scales. All right. I hope this video was informative. I know that, anytime you start talking about things like this, there's going to be people who say, well, you probably should do this, probably should do that. And they're right. It's trial and error on a lot of this stuff. But these things worked for me. I don't get into a bunch of arguments with folk about what they're doing on the layout. It's your layout. You do it the way you want to do it. And if it makes you happy, that's wonderful. Folks, I always appreciate you all watching my videos. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until the next video, I'll see you.